So these days, a lot of people, there's sort of this embodiment problem. A lot of people in society are a bit disembodied, a bit sort of disassociated with their bodies. But at the same time, there are these people are often still very successful. You know, these university professors up in their head. These you worked on the you were trading commodity futures on the floor for like a decade in the
Right,
80s.
right.
Maybe you might have a lot of these stock traders might also be a little bit disembodied. Even athletes sometimes don't aren't as in touch with their bodies as much as we think they might be. So why is this a problem? Yeah, why is this a problem?
Well, I don't know if it's a problem.
Maybe
I'll
not.
say that, yeah, it might not be. A lot of times people are willing to do what they do, and that's good enough, right?
Yeah.
That's um, but if you're interested in improving, learning, then knowing, if Feldenkrais idiom is that knowing what you're doing so you can do what you want. If you don't know that, then the way you improve is by what other people have told you. I'm a little bit older than you, so there used to be a guy called his name was Dick Fosbury, right? And when I grew up, we used to learn how to do a high jump. We would over the high jump, we would scissor our legs over the high bar, right? Dick Fosbury comes along and he goes over backwards, and everybody's like, "That's not going to work." And he goes on to say, "Well, you know what? Actually, it works really well, and by doing it a different way." So I think people are going along because that's what they've been told, and they follow whoever their teachers were, and that's good enough for them. Occasionally, there are people who don't, and that changes the patterns of how people do things. So I don't know if that answers that first question, but I think the embodiment is haphazard and not intentional. And I think once you start becoming more embodied, then you have a choice. I think isn't that the whole idea of it?
Yeah. And movement is sort of a tool to get that to bring back that awareness of our body. It seems because when I do these Feldenkrais lessons, for example, you're moving your body. It's not just moving though; it's moving in sort of this um, kind of intentional, meditative, almost kind of way. But anyway, movement in general seems to be some sort of inbuilt technology that sort of wakes us up and shows us um, these possibilities that we kind of couldn't see before. You know, you're saying how people are kind of going along with whatever culture or history or whatever they were thrown into, and they don't really question it. It might be working perfectly fine. It might be leading to success, but it's sort of this limited range of movements, which sort of leads to a kind of limited range of I don't know, ways of living. But when doing Feldenkrais, for example, you're doing these other movements, and it almost kind of wakes up the possibilities. How how does movement act as a sort of tool for um, embodiment? It seems basic, like the body moves, but still, like if you
Yeah,
could break it down.
yeah. But I would offer this first. I wouldn't call it the body moving. I would say that
Okay,
we are moving.
okay,
We as a human being.
yeah,
This idea of what we have an intention, that we have this, and how we become aware of how we coordinate everything
yeah,
is where we sense our movement. Why is movement so important? Why did Moshe take movement? My take on that is it's most reproducible, right? I mean, you can, can you, he talks about four parts of a habit: and feeling, thinking, sensing, and acting, right? And can you can you have the same emotion, the same feeling Well, I don't think so. Somewhere in the translation of that, between the time that you have it, if you want to test a hypothesis of how you create a habit, how do I love? Do I love the same way? Do I hate the same way? Can you recreate it the same way to test in a scientific way? Because he was a scientist. A hypothesis. I don't think you can have the same emotion. Um, uh, can you have the same thought? Yeah, I think you can. I think you can. I think there's a close um, psychotherapy uh, way uh, of looking at habits through thought. Um, Sensing yourself in gravity and space is the other part, but that doesn't really check into the habit itself. But movement is the thing that is the manifestation of all that in a way, in a coordinated way, at least you hope, that gives you the insight and where your blind spots might be. And I think that's why he chose movement, because you can do that movement over and over and over again, almost identically the same way every single time. And so you can test the hypothesis.
Right, and of course, I'm assuming you're not really uh, thinking in terms of we've got this mind, we've got this body, and it's split. It's all one organism, right? But
Right.
the movement, it seems to be almost like this kind of uh, intersection point or this interaction point between the mind and the body. And by moving, you're like literally like reconnecting the two together, and you wake up as a complete human. That's how I feel when I do these exercises. Do you get that kind of
Yeah.
feeling at all?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think, but if you have to kind of have a kind of a 50,000 foot level look at it. We're socialized, we're taught, that the harder we work, the better we are, the better our values are, better the value we have, right? And if
Yeah.
you put your nose to the grindstone, all the things that we hear when we're growing up, um, uh, and and I think we lose the ability to have many different ways to do similar things when we try and do things like that. I think it's really important then to understand that we come along as Feldenkrais practitioners and say, well, you know what? If you do less, if you do it slower, then you'll actually improve faster. And so we're going against the the current of prevailing thinking. So people have to give themselves the permission to give that a chance. And I have a lot of different people that come in my office, and I especially weekend athletes, but I have Olympians and professional athletes as well. And I always ask this question, and I say, some people say, well, will you work with me? And I'll say, well, answer me this question, and I'll tell you if I'll work with you. And they'll say, what's that? And I said, when you've done something really well, has it ever felt like effort? And in every single moment that person answers honestly, they go, no, it doesn't feel like effort. I said, so then why do we value effort more than the sensation of doing something well? And they can't answer that. So I said, I'm going to help you find out how to recreate that feeling of effortlessness.
Yeah, so we have this perception of effort, this perception of like, oh, this is hard. I'm doing this, and I want to stop or something. Like, but yeah, you're right. In our best moments, we that sort of perception changes, and the body might still be moving in the same ways, or maybe not. But that perception, that feeling, that experience is much more sort of peaceful and blissful and effortless and calm. And how do you get them to do that? How do you get them to get
Well,
there?
yeah, that's a great question. So I worked a lot with the Arizona State University uh, athletic department pre-COVID, and the assistant athletic director, um, the 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 head of the dance department, which I was working in, got me an interview with the assistant athletic department director, and so we're sitting at the table, and all these other people are there, and I said, "Okay." He kind of asked me the same question, and I said, "Well, if you have an experience of it, would that suffice?" And he says, "Yeah. Well, how would you do that?" I said, "I won't touch you. I'm just going to tell you something. I'm going to show you how to do something. And if you give me, your honest experience, you tell me if it's easier for you." And so in 3 minutes, I did something with him that changed it was just a simple twist. He was a golfer. He loved the golf. He's an ex NFL player, but he loves the golf now. And I said, "Well, okay, do this, do that, do this, do this. Is your golf swing easier now?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "Yeah, how did you do that?" I said, "That's what I bring to the table." So it has to be experientially based for people to understand it, to give it a moment. And I say that when I teach in training programs, or I teach in front of a big group of people. I say it doesn't mean anything about what I say. It only means something about what you experience. And if I do my job well, I'm creating the environment where you can have an experience of yourself much differently than you've had in a long time. And I had and some people, that's too much. They can't handle that. I had a head coach, because I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I had a head coach that was in Arizona come to see me. And that coach said, after a couple of lessons, "I feel the difference. Just tell me what to do. Just give me the answer." And I said, "I can't give you that. I don't have your answer. You have to pay attention to how you do it so you can find your own answer." And that coach could not handle that. That's an honest answer to his question. But I didn't have that. I don't have those answers. I can help him feel how he did it so he can do it over and over and over again until he changes, and then he has to figure it out again. But if he doesn't want to go in to notice how he does it, then I can't help him, because he's expecting me as something out here to give him the answer. And that's not the idea of Feldenkrais. The Feldenkrais is the idea of having an experience of yourself in a way that you can reproduce it because you know how you do it, not because it's chance.
Yeah. But we've been taught in school that the answers are out there. Science has sort of these universal answers for everybody that apply to everybody, and this is what it is. So
Right.
I can't really blame him. But now, like through Feldenkrais and other methods like this, you start to realize like everyone has their own individual answers to not just these movement questions and performance questions, but also like a lot of other things.
Yeah. Yeah. And this, the famous story of Moshe and the Yemenite Jew, and he said, Moshe, did you ever hear this story before?
No.
So Moshe's, and if I get it wrong, Feldenkrais gods don't strike me dead, but this is the way I heard it. So that Moshe's speaking with an elderly gentleman, and sitting across from him. The elderly gentleman's reading a newspaper, but he's reading it upside down. And Moshe's very young at the time, and he says to him, "Are you blind?" He says to the old man. And the old man looks at him and he says, "Why would you ask me such a silly question? Of course I'm not blind." He says, "Well, you're reading the paper upside down." The man starts laughing. He says, "Young man," he says, "I grew up in a small town that had one school, one book per subject. And we would put the book in the middle of the room, and we'd have to sit around the book and read it from whatever angle we sat. So it doesn't make a difference if I read the newspaper like this, like this, like this, that." To your point, if you can continually learn to read the newspaper or read yourself in many, 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 many different orientations, you can know yourself in a much more deeply intimate way. And that's turning the book.
Is that why you I listened to another interview you did, and I might be getting this wrong, so fix me where I'm wrong. But you're a swimmer. You swim, and it sounds like you kind of black out one eye in the goggle or something.
Yeah,
And when you
yeah,
run, you like cover up one ear, so you're basically one-eared or one-eyed, and you'll swim or move this way. Explain it, 'cause
yeah.
I might be getting it wrong.
Yeah, so we know ourselves through our senses, right? Right?
Yeah,
And so sight. So think of how we develop habits, right? So we think
yeah,
we have our eyes and we're in utero and our eyes are moving and our mouth is suckling and then we're born and then we have sound or in utero we have sound and all this other stuff. So we're getting information even before we're born, one side or the other, up, down, but we're not really in gravity because we're inside the room. So we're born, and then we start developing these patterns, right?
uh-huh.
And how we use our eyes to suckle, to how we use our lips, our nose, and so all of this information is like developing these neural pathways, right? So they get pretty ingrained. So how then do we feel ourselves differently? Well, change how we take in the world. How do I hear? How do I hear the sounds as I'm a runner, right? Or how do I take in the pool and see the depth of the pool as I'm taking a stroke in the water by covering one eye, and I see where my arm is entering and it's totally different. And how do I then rotate and it's so different, right? Well, I didn't know that. I couldn't feel that because the information then is different. It's new. Then the question after it is, well, what do you do with it? Well, that's I think where the real learning happens, because I say to people, the differences are where we learn to move differently. And if you can feel the difference and know how you created that difference, you can do it over and over and over differently until it makes it comfortable, easy, elegant. And now you have a whole new way of being, a whole new way of, I had I knew I'd been doing this a long time because I had a ex-major leaguer bring his son who was trying to get into the big leagues to see me. And he said to me, which, he said, if I just would have listened to you, I would have done a lot better in the majors, which is a whole nother story. But yeah, I think that answers your question. So
No,
what do you do with that? That is all that you give it different information. You give yourself different ways of sensing yourself. And what are easy ways to do that? How you take in sight, how you take in the sounds, close the nostril, how you take in breathing, how do you take in smells. Change that, so then the pattern in your brain has to change. You don't have a choice.
And I guess when people see this guy swimming in the pool with one goggle, they think, oh, it's just his eye. But from your first person perspective, it's like your arms are different, your everything is different, right?
Yeah, everything's and it's and not that I have one goggle on. I take a goggle and I take like a black magic marker, and
Yeah,
and on the outside I'll just I actually take black nail polish, and
yeah,
I'll color in a nail the outside of the goggles with the nail polish, and then I can switch each eye. So it's not that you just do one eye or you do the other eye. You do them all the time. You're switching them up. You want to constantly be changing different variations. And nervous system does great with new variations. That's how we learn when we're children. All these different errors that we're doing, changes, and we get all this information, and then guess what? We have a whole new pattern, and we didn't expect it.
yeah. And especially as adults, children can maybe even more passively change their brains, but as adults, this errors and these novel movements are really like the best key into neuroplasticity, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, and in life, our errors really teach us, right? I mean, they teach us in lots of different ways. Boy, I could I'm first in line on my errors all the time, right? My wife will say, you did it again. I did it again. And when are you going to learn? I don't know. Keep on trying
Yeah.
until changing it up. So yeah, our errors teach us a lot.
And just like that guy with that upside down newspaper, when you learn to, say, for example, swim with one eye or run with one ear, you're kind of more adaptable. You will enter a situation where maybe that becomes useful or at least easier. Life just becomes easier.
Yeah, but think of it this way, of all those different variations that if you don't try and do anything with, if you're not trying to achieve a goal, it's just like a big pool of variations. That your nervous system's job spontaneously is to coordinate those variations in an immediate way for survival or for functionality. And the deeper that pool is, the more ways you have to do things.
Yeah. This is sort of a side point, but also I think there's this deep need for humans to want to feel alive, to feel, oh, I'm free. This is me. It's a bit overwhelming for some people. It's sort of scary because you're like in existentialism. John Paul Sartre has this idea in his book Being in Nothingness, where he talks about this freedom we have. And one example he gives is this guy standing on the edge of a cliff, and he calls it vertigo. And this guy is sort of this scary feeling on the side of the cliff, but it's not because he's going to fall; it's because he could jump. And then he gives another example, but it's like feeling of on that cliff, you're right at that sort of intersection between these two moments in life. Or another one, there's this gambler. He's decided he's not gonna gamble anymore. He's done. He's decided. But then he walks into the casino and he sees it, and he's saying, "Well, I could still gamble." So sort of this sort of weird intersection between the past and the present, and the present and the future. So, but in those moments of like, I could do this, and it's like this overwhelming force of possibility. It's scary, but also it's very exciting, and it makes us feel human and alive. And of course, I guess when you're doing some of these movements, like in Feldenkrais, that's how I feel. I feel this like I'm back in control. I'm sort of snapped out of my habits of just do, and now you're at that cliff basically. And what am I gonna do?
Right, right. So Moshe would say, do you have a choice?
Do you have a
If you
choice?
don't have a choice, that's being compulsive. Yes, no, right, wrong, good, bad. That's being compulsive. One or two ways to do something is compulsive.
Yeah.
Is an illness. You have to have at least three, preferably five ways of doing something, minimum, to be able to have more.
But even in these moments, like in these lessons, you you're actually being extra kind of conscious of your movements. Okay, turn your head left, put your left ankle over your right knee, or all these things. But at the same time, it's this. I feel the most out of control of my body. I notice that all these other parts of my body are automatically moving. So I might initiate this one little movement, but at the same time, my body is just moving itself. So in a way, it's active, but also it wakes me up to this fact that I'm only so much in control. So it's kind of confusing.
Well, listen to you. Listen, it's wonderful. We talked earlier about saying it's not really my body, right? It's the whole
Yeah.
self. And then you go, well, my body's doing this. Well, that's a habit, right? To refer to yourself as your body.
Okay.
Yeah. Right? So, um,
But we always do that. It's like
yeah,
but
yeah,
I don't like that. I don't like it. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't match the
yeah,
experience. Yeah.
yeah. It's crazy, right? But we do, right? All of us do, and I'm part of that. I'm just not like, you know, so a lot of times people will say, they'll come and have a lesson to lay down on the table, and they'll say, I'm not helping. Like you say, I'm not really in control.
Yeah.
And I'll lift their arm, and then I'll say, can you feel that you're helping? I'm not helping. And I'll let go of their arm, and their arm's still up.
Yeah.
I'm not holding up your arm. Who's holding up your arm? And I go, I couldn't tell. I can't feel it. So you get this insight into how much you need to peel back the rows in order for them to start feeling themselves in a more accurate way. Because they don't know they're doing it. They don't know. They don't know what they don't know. So you have to, you can't, I say to people, I can't go too fast because it won't work, but it's like a fire hose in a martini glass. I can't open up the hose. It won't go into the glass. It's so much information. You can't absorb it. One of my mentors, a wonderful man named Russell Delman and Anat Banyal and several others, really big influence. But Russell I was working with him, and it felt like he took a bucket of Feldenkrais and just opened up my mouth and poured it in, and I was like, I'm full. He goes, I get it. I was full. I couldn't take in any more sensation to myself. And so when people say to you, I don't feel it, or I'm not in control of it, or I can't tell that I'm doing this, or it doesn't, it's like they're telling you the truth. But that isn't the possibility. Possibility is, let's unravel the puzzle a little bit so you can get more attuned to how you don't feel yourself, so then you can stop doing that and inhibit that.
But we have these sort of habits, and we can't even say they're bodily habits or they're mental habits. Sort of the mental and the physical are sort of just two sides of the same coin. So movement and thinking and feeling and all these things are just one kind of system that we are, right?
Yeah. And so it goes back to the very first thing you asked me. What's the easiest thing to do in order to feel that habit? Where do you want to go? You want to feel your habit? Yeah, I want to get to know it, buddy. How do I do it? Well, which one would you take?
Yeah, you think, okay, I'm going to change my thought. They say, okay, well, how exactly do I do that? Right?
Yeah. I mean, you can become a Buddhist monk and try and do that. It's doable, but it's hard.
I'm going to tell myself, I'm happy.
Yeah. It doesn't really do it, does it?
The body's like this sort of like, it's like this jackhammer. Let's just get right in there. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't really kind of make that. So, yeah.
You gave me this lesson, and it was a bit different than the other Feldenkrais lessons I've seen. I can't even explain it really yet, but it felt like there was sort of these. It was the first time in my life really where I felt like these opposing forces within my body were meeting one another, which would make sense that they must always be doing this. It must be like simultaneous movements coming from my feet and my shoulder and my neck, and they're all kind of working together in kind of different directions. But then it felt like, and you were kind of trying to point this out in the exercise, okay, where do these movements meet? Find that point of interaction, point of intersection. It's really hard to explain this because, like you said, Feldenkrais is this kind of experiential thing. But yeah, can you try to kind of explain what's going on with that lesson? Yeah, it was great, but listen to me now. I'm just bumbling around.
Me too. So I think it needs a little bit of a intro into this. I think Moshe was brilliant, and his work is still magnificent. I think one of the things that he might have done is overestimated the public's interest in becoming more introspective. He'll say things like, feel yourself on the floor, feel your back, feel how your chest tightens or what's happening in your abdomen, or, an unlimited number of things. And so when I was first starting, and for a long time, I loved the Feldenkrais magic. It's like people will get up off the floor, off my table, and they would go, man, that was great. How did it happen? Well, you tell me, but they didn't know how it happened. And so I would say, well, what did it feel like? Well, I can't tell you because I couldn't feel it in myself, but I know when I stood up, I feel better. And that really bothered me because when I would do lessons listening to Moshe or colleagues, wonderful teachers, um, they would say, can you feel how your chest tightens? I mean, that's one of the big ones, right? And I couldn't feel that. I mean, I knew it was because I just thought it was, but I couldn't feel me. I didn't have an internal sensation of that happening. And so I didn't know how to have that experience. So then at a Feldenkrais conference, there was a man who brought this idea of biotensegrity to and talked about that, of how and I have this little thing here, which is a tensegrity kind of
Yeah, it looks like a little baby jungle gym or
it
something.
is, right? And it's about biotensegrity is about how tensegrity here, but biotensegrity, living things, is out in all through nature. But how compression and tension work together. So these are creating more compression, and these are creating more tension, right? So this idea of, and Moshe talks about this, right? Right.
Yeah.
So there's this more tension and well, during COVID and maybe a little bit prior to COVID, I was doing something and I was taking an online workshop, and the teacher said, and I don't like stretching, but she said it was called fascia stretching and everything, and she said, do this and then do that, and can you feel it? And you know what? She was right. I could feel it. I could have an internal sense of that, what she was asking me to do. And a light bulb went out, and I said, I can take awareness through movement, and I can use those principles of tensegrity, tension and compression, and oppositional movement to have a more accurate, concrete experience of myself through movement. And that's what I've been doing. And that's what that movement's about, that lesson was about. Having the oppositional movement, whether you're going into arching or extension or you're going into folding, and having them meet. And where they meet, you have a sense of that. That is you. And then following that, as that moves through you, you can feel you. You don't feel the floor. You can feel the floor. Nothing wrong with feeling the floor. But you have a more internal experience of yourself. And then you listen to that and you go, oh, I feel I'm stiffer here. Well, what happens if I move that way? Oh, that becomes lighter. Oh, it's harder here. I'm contracting here more. Well, what happens if I go here? Well, it's softer there. Oh, I'm not as contracted. Well, can I soften this now? I mean, that's the essence of the work, is to listen that intimately to not only your external self, again, in the external world, but your internal self and how you move. And I have a wonderful client who said, we were doing this and we were working, and we were giving her a lesson, and I said, "We feel it?" She said, "Yeah, I got it. I got the area." I said, "Okay." It was online. It was on Zoom. I said, "Well," she goes, and I just did the slightest movement, and the movement just went through me beautifully. And she goes, "That was magnificent." That's, to me as a teacher, is fabulous, because it's not me, it's her, and it's her experience, and she learned something quite magnificent about herself, and I think that's great.
It's like there's this kind of spotlight of awareness, and in normal life too, it might be really dull and it might not even be there actually. But in Feldenkrais in general, when I first I've done 3 lessons now. My first 2 lessons I did sort of feel that spotlight of awareness in a sort of general area, but it wasn't really clear exactly where that light beam or laser was going. But when I did your lesson yesterday, this one you just described, I can feel this sort of sharp, like laser point in a certain actual point in my body, and like this is what it was. But not only that, you could feel the lines kind of joining into that force, into that center.
Yeah, that's the whole point. It's
like one little piece, like the size of a little grape or something.
Yeah,
maybe smaller.
And it doesn't for you. It was the size of a grape. For somebody else, it might be a much bigger general place, but it's still having a much different internal experience of themselves. And I think that ability to have that takes what Moshe would say is taking the abstract and making it concrete. You had a concrete experience of that grape in that point, and you follow the grape as it moves through you. And the more you do it, then it's not magic anymore. Then it's like, oh, I really do feel myself. Here it is. Okay. Well, what am I doing with my breathing now? What do I, how do I sense myself? I mean, there's an unlimited number of questions you can ask, right?
Actually, after the lesson, I started like, what's the word? Kind of, not grunting, but kind of like moaning in a pleasurable kind of way, like kind of it's like coming out. Not painful. It's sort of like a nice sort of like I was releasing some like weird evil spirits or something. I don't know. It didn't sound like that. It didn't sound like I was. It sounded much not like that. But like I was like letting myself kind of like some tension or something was released. And I did notice also in the exercise I was definitely shaking sort of towards that center as well, and that in the ribs, I guess. So these sort of spontaneous movements happen as well afterwards, not just through your movements, but through your voice and maybe hopefully through your actions as well. We'll see what happens today.
Yeah, but you think about that though. So if you think about that pool we were talking about, and the experiences of yourself is the big pool, and the different experiences you have, the deeper the pool gets. Well, you just added some water to the pool by that different experience, right? And then some other time, somewhere else, you don't know when, you'll be able to reach into that pool and grab it and connect it to some other kind of functional activity. And that's the spontaneity that Moshe talked about.
One activity I kind of had in mind, because the idea starts flowing after these exercises too. I think it's a great time to almost like either just sleep and dream on it, or actually get a journal out and start scribbling things down, because ideas start pouring out. And one idea I had after doing that one was like, if we can find these points of intersection within our own body, what about with each other? Like, what if in communication, if we find
cool.
Some of those exercises you can maybe create.
Where
is the point of intersection?
Wow. Yeah. Very much so. Very much so. I think that would be a really great question for somebody who does Tai Chi. For the two people find it within themselves first, and then connect with each other and follow each other's point of intersection. That would be a really cool, great idea.
They're actually physically in touching each other, like, okay, I don't want to. Of course, it's very applicable in certain activities, but even in just like a hug, or even without the touch, just eye gazing or looking at each other or something, I think we can probably find the point of intersection even with this non-touch communication.
I have to think about that. I don't know. I mean, I truly don't.
It'd be harder to do, but to get if you're actually physically connected, you could definitely do it. If you're physically connected, I think. Like say in hugging or having sex or just walking, holding hands or something.
Definitely when you're having sex, it's certainly when you're making love, absolutely. I think let me think about that. I'll have to do a second
fun
podcast.
A little special, like book number 2 or whatever. The sequel.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm gonna give it some thought. I don't have a good answer for you at the moment.
And another idea I had, it gets a little bit more abstract, but with time itself, with your life itself, like say you had this life pre-Feldenkrais, and life is not like split in two. There's like it's like ongoing, like a billion pieces or whatever. They're all mashed together. But you had this different kind of life. You're a stock options trader or whatever
Commodity trader. Yep.
commodity trader. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, clearly not my field. And then I guess your daughter got sick, and then you kind of got into Feldenkrais, and things changed that way. But like, I know you probably can't answer this at the point now, but if there was sort of a point of interaction between this like this pre-Feldenkrais you and this post-Feldenkrais you, there might have been sort of this moment in time where like, oh, this kind of weaves my life together. And I guess if we can find these sort of points of interaction throughout various changes in our life, we can almost like find, oh, this is me. This is like something that's always been there with me. That's just a bit more abstract, but it'd be kind of fun little exercise to do, to be like, where is the point of interaction in time or in myself?
That's a great comment. I knew so my daughter is 30, going to be 39 in a couple of days, my oldest daughter. But I knew internally, so if you think about it, you get different insights throughout your life. To trade on, so I was a trader on the floor. So the people you see yelling and screaming and doing all that kind of crazy
it's
stuff.
1980s. It's like the peak of all this. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like crazy. It was great. It was great, and it was also terrible. I say to people, it was a great way to make a living. It was a great way to make a lot of money. It wasn't a great way to make a living. I knew I'm not can be. I have the choice of whether I want to be. But I'm not a mean person, and I don't like to be mean. I can get angry, right? But I don't really choose it. And down there, it's hard to be a nice guy. It just is. It's very, very competitive. About as competitive as you can get in the world. And I think that it's place where I was really came to me as like, oh, this is a point of intersection. It's like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be a jerk. I want to be an asshole. And point of intersection was my daughter needed help. Probably the weather wasn't going to be very good, and we had to do some things. And I was in a situation where we could leave and get out of Chicago. So that is a point of intersection.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? So I think that answer is yeah. I think you get those. I don't think they're always as clear as that one was for me, but that one was pretty clear. And I just walked away. Nobody cared. They didn't say, "Oh, Rich, come back." They said, "See you."
They didn't. They didn't even notice. A year later, they're like, something's different here. What's different? I don't know. a new vending machine? I don't know. Something's different.
No. Nobody noticed. Nobody cared. Nobody
like, more for me. Not even that. Yeah. There's like, okay, they're so focused on their thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Nobody cared. It was like, and rightfully so. I mean, that's not the game. So yeah. So I think you're right. There are points of interaction or intersection that do happen in our life, and which one do we want to follow? As I said in the lesson, you can listen to either way. Either you can listen to the way the area of intersection moves through you, headward or footward. Which one do you want to follow? Which way do you want to follow it? And this, in my life, I decided to do Feldenkrais.
Yeah, because not only do we split up our mind and our body, we split up each individual body part, and we definitely do this with our bodies. But with time in our own life, we really, really do this, and we don't ever kind of connect the pieces together. Like you see, you were in high school, you were a child, you were the future you, and it's all kind of like definitely disconnected pieces. And I think that brings a bit of a kind of dirty kind of feeling. You don't feel quite happy, but when you find these like these points of intersection and you kind of put it together like in this single model, this single story, you're like, oh, you can relax and it kind of gets easier, just like those athletes kind of felt things got easier once they just got things all connected up.
I couldn't agree with you more. I couldn't agree with you. I think that's when they say the Feldenkrais, they do a Feldenkrais. Don't try. Stop trying. Do it less. Do it easier. Right? I mean, just kind of what we had. So, when you do it well, you're so well coordinated that nothing stands out. That's the definition of grace. And when something's standing out, if I go like this and I reach for the phone all the time, well, this is standing out, right? But
Yeah.
if I'm moving well and I'm listening to my intention and my thought and how that's coordinated with my breathing and movement, then everything kind of flows. And that's what you said. If you're in everybody uses the word in the flow, in the zone. It's just which way you want to read the paper, right? It's just it's the same thing. But how are you going to read the paper? How
But
are you going to
before
read the
we
book?
But before we get to be able to read that paper clearly and effortlessly, it seems like there's a bit of a period of pain in the beginning. So if someone like is looking at that guy reading the paper, they're imagining, oh my God, that must be the most painful, awkward experience. And even in the lesson you gave me yesterday, you had this like things like this, for example. You wrap your hand around your head and you touch my right hand around the back of my head, touching my left ear. That's like something I've never done or thought about doing, and that was like a little
Right.
bit like ugh. But like now, I have been, but it also kind of wakes you up, and you're like, oh, okay, now like possibilities reemerge, and your habits are like. Phew. It's like
Right.
when Sartre was like, okay, you're on the edge of this cliff. Are you gonna jump or you're not gonna jump? Are you
Yeah.
gonna go back to the casino or not go to the casino? And you're like that moment of choice, and you're like left or right, left or right. So it's kind of nice because it's waking me back up to like this sort of blank slate of like choice. That felt
Right.
nice, but it's also like kind of uncomfortable, but in a scary, free, human kind of way.
Yeah, maybe thank you for saying that. Maybe I should have said in the lesson I gave you, it's like, um, don't do anything that's uncomfortable. Don't do
Yeah.
anything that makes you scared.
Okay.
Go, instead of putting your hand around your head and getting a hold of the other ear, just put your hand on the back of your head.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Giving people
So,
option. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You asked about athletes and things earlier, and one of the athletes that came in had was a head coach. He's now in the majors. He's a bench coach in the major leagues. Um, has a pin in his shoulder, and when he came to see me, he said, I want to be able, you know, to wash my hair with my left arm, my left hand. And he said, I'll send. He was a coach. He said, I'll send you all the players you want if you can do that. I said, sure. And so, how many different ways are we learn in Feldenkrais to bring your arm up to get behind your head, right? And so it's just another way of learning a different part of yourself. We always are here. We're always forward or peripheral, but playing to our backside, feeling back of your head, the back of your neck.
Yeah.
You know, that's so. Of course, he was able to bring his hand back there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But my point there was like, yeah, even if it was like, 10 seconds of discomfort today and afterwards I felt, oh, this is great. What else can I do?
Yeah, I don't want 10 seconds of discomfort. I mean,
No.
you're
Okay.
welcome to it. I mean,
Okay. Better
because
not
if you're
to.
really interested in the learning, you want to be able to do it again and again and again and again, smoother.
Uh,
And then you're looking for the discomfort. I want it to be, I think I said in there, make it comfortable, make it
yeah.
familiar, make it elegant. How can you do that? Well, if you think about it, if there's discomfort or fear or being scared, well, you're going to contract. I don't want the contraction. I mean,
That's true.
if I'm trying to help the person feel that they are contracting, yeah, of course, I get that. But I'm not trying to do that. That's not
Yeah.
my intention. My intention there was to keep things available
Yeah.
without the contraction. So
But
then you can feel like when you do that, oh my
yeah.
God, this all moves, right?
Yeah. And there's physical comfort and discomfort, but there's also there's mental, like spiritual something, like comfort and discomfort. And sometimes
Yeah,
like you might be comfortable in one area and not the other, but you're kind of in this ambiguous state of like, I'm physically, you're not really sure if you're comfortable or not. And it's more like that. I sort of discomfort. It's sort of discomfort and comfort at the same time. So maybe I'm not using the right words.
right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what your experience was, but yeah, you can just be confused.
Yeah.
I think that it sounds like you were just confused, which is understandable.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember a wonderful practitioner named Alan Questel was teaching a lesson, and I did that same movement, and I was like, oh, that's my hand. It doesn't even feel like my hand
Yeah.
because he
Exactly.
crossed the midline, right? Crossed the
Yeah.
midline, and it was like, wow, that's really an odd feeling.
Well,
Well, odd,
it
you know.
it's like it's basically, I think it's this, you're experiencing yourself as a subject and like an object at the same time, which is maybe the wrong way of dividing things, because maybe there never was such a division, but it's bringing that division, like it's either dissipating it or it's connecting it, but you feel like, whoa, you feel yourself as this living thing. And I think that's maybe the fear or the discomfort in there, because it kind of almost, you feel your skeleton, you feel yourself moving, it almost brings you back to your mortality or something. You're like, oh, but also that excitement of, oh, I'm alive. What am I gonna do? But it kind of
All of
highlights
that.
highlights your mortality, your life, and possibility, and all this stuff. And it's a bit like, that's a scary thing, to know that you're gonna die, and to know that you're alive, and know that you can change your life. And we don't
You
really
know what that
we run
you,
away from that sometimes.
you know what that's called?
Yeah, I don't know. What do you call it?
Vulnerability.
Yeah,
That's called being vulnerable, which we all are. So you have a sense of that, and oh, ooh, what am I going to do with that? Oh, I don't like that feeling. I don't like, ugh. There's all those other associations come up with, and you totally get it. And sounds like it was a great lesson for you.
I like that feeling. So I think it's also why I studied philosophy, and I enjoyed reading existentialism and all of these things. And I already mentioned Sartre, but to me it sounds like, when I read Moshe Feldenkrais, and I do these lessons, it feels like this philosophy, in action. Basically, it's sort of this action-based version of these books. These books that are basically talking about, what is the human experience. Basically, we're free, we're full of possibilities, we're mortal, we have to make a choice in our lives. All of these things kind of go through, Nietzsche and Heidegger and Sartre and all these guys. And I feel like an easier way to actually learn all those lessons is just do a couple of Feldenkrais lessons, and you're like, okay, you're there. You can skip 2 years of painful university.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that I would agree with you. I would say, when my daughter was getting lessons, she got through with a lesson, and she said that, this is how I feel. And I said, no, it isn't. You don't feel like it. She goes, Dad, she's 9 years old. She goes, Dad, don't tell me how I feel. I only don't know how I feel. Like, that's a 9-year-old. Oh my God. I was like, oh, that's a learning for you, Dad. So that was pretty crazy, right?
Did all of your children do Feldenkrais, or what was sort of? I guess some children started later than others. And did you notice that, any differences in how they? I guess you can't really pinpoint why a child becomes the way they are, but yeah, how did Feldenkrais kind of, do you think, might have changed, kind of the development and personality and everything of your children? It's really hard to say, probably, 'cause
Oh,
like
I don't
such
know how to
no
answer
idea,
because
right?
I think you'd have to ask. I think you'd have to ask them.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
I think. Well, I think my youngest daughter, Casey, you would have to ask.
yeah.
But my
It's so
oldest
individual,
daughter,
right? You never know, because
yeah,
everyone's
I
their
couldn't.
own
I'm saying I
individual.
agree. It's a really good
Oh,
question, and
yeah.
I don't know how to answer that because I think that's a really good question to ask them.
Well,
So
that's good, and that highlights that fact of how personalized it is, and how even as their father, you can't get in there. There's no way in. The only way
there's
in is
no
to
way
be
in.
to be it, to do it.
I was like, that's a really good question. I don't know how to answer that.
Well,
So
how about you? You've been doing let's go to like athletic performance and that kind of stuff too. You've been doing sports basically your whole life. You played baseball, you swam, you still swim, you run. I don't know, maybe some other things. Have you noticed? Did you notice any kind of changes in your experience as an athlete? From I mean, yeah, you got older. That was one difference, but this, yeah. What kind of how did Feldenkrais and all these things you've been teaching kind of change your own experience in terms of athletics?
yeah, so I have a really good friend who swam in college, and so I'm 68, and he says, "Goldsand, we're getting slower and you're getting faster." So I'm literally am swimming faster than I did 25 years ago, and I'm enjoying it more. It's not. I like the competitiveness of it when I want to be, but I'm very clear of when I want to compete. Most of the time, I'm not competing. Well, most of the time, I'm not competing in a meet. But when I do, I'm there to compete, and it's like not. I'm very clear about why I'm there. I want to win, right? And it's like I don't have superfluous things getting in my way. It's like it's clear why I'm here. I'm here to have a good time, and I'm here to compete,
Yeah.
and they go together. And I don't. And I think people have contrary motivations that get in their way of what their intentions are, and so so for me, athletically, which I spend most of my time swimming now because I don't have a lot of time for other stuff, and it's easy for me to do, and I can do it anywhere. Um, I'm better, much better swimmer now than I was 20 years ago, no doubt, no doubt. So
That's
I'm getting better.
that's great
What else
news
could
because
you want?
I mean, you're 68. You're buffer than 99% of the 20-year-olds out there. You're swimming
Thank you.
better. This is great news, and you're changing your brain. So this is at least one example of basically we can forget about all these things we've been told about aging and stuff. There
Yeah,
are
yeah,
you're,
Peter Terra, who just put out this new book, right? About and a lot of what he says in the book is kind of like old news to me, and it's like I'd I'd like to meet him and give him a Feldenkrais lesson. Him and Clayton Kershaw. There's other people that I'd like to give Michael Jordan a lesson. Some golfers I'd like to
I'll
give.
give Michael Jordan a lesson. I'll be down for that. No, no, I'm kidding. No, but like this, but your point is great because there's these people who are highly successful, and if they just learned this little thing, how much better could they have been, or could they
Yeah,
become?
yeah. Especially Clayton Kershaw. I'd love to be able to uh, work with him. Worked with two NFL quarterbacks last couple of years, not last year, year before, and year before that. Um, the refinement gets, especially an elite athlete, because I went to the '96 Olympics with U.S. diving, um, and USA diving in '98. But the refinement that they have, they're so accurate that you need to be really accurate, and it's like they really want to be in your office because that little thing that you give them is a huge thing for them, and they really appreciate you, so they really value you. Clayton Kershaw is just a wish list, I don't know. If you got any ins to that one, I'd like it.
Oh,
Anybody hearing that, so
yeah. I'll try. Actually, talking about swimming, after my very first Feldenkrais lesson, which was just a few weeks ago or something like that, maybe
right.
longer, who knows? But the first impulse I had was I want to start swimming. I don't know what that was, and then I started swimming, and I've been doing that. I'm a total beginner. I can finally go get across, do a lap without trying to
Good for
step onto the
you.
floor. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
getting faster and faster, but what I love about it is like especially in these very beginning stages of swimming, you it's sort of like a Feldenkrais lesson. Each time you go, you start to feel new parts of your body, muscles
Yeah,
moving and getting faster, and you feel more calm in the water.
right.
Everything
And
is
what?
like, yeah,
Yeah, right. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I mean, so here's what I want you to do. You wear
yeah,
goggles. You wear
yeah.
goggles.
I got some goggles. Here they are. They're already kind of
So,
black, but it's just they're not experienced as black. They're just they little
so get
goggles.
another pair. Go out and get another pair, a second pair.
Yeah,
Take those, and then take black nail polish, and just go over the outside of one of the eye
yeah.
sockets,
Uh
not
huh.
the inside, because you don't want to do the inside, the
Oh
outside
no.
of them,
Yeah.
and then go in the water. Get in the water first, so you're standing, and then go in and swim, and then email me and tell me what your experience. You're gonna like, oh my god, it's like it's gonna blow your mind.
Okay, so you've got like multiple pairs basically. You've got a left eye, right eye goggle, two eye goggle. How does this work?
Oh, you only have to do one. Then you just take it
Just
off
do
and flip
one.
it and do
Oh,
the
then you
other one.
flip it. Yeah, that's right. See, this shows how much of a beginner swimmer I am.
Right, right, right,
You
right,
can flip
exactly.
it.
So,
Another thing I noticed about the pool is like, okay, I'm living in Japan, and I don't want to bash this culture, but it's a bit it's friendly, but it's not this sort of laughing, happy, open
yeah,
friendliness that you get in some countries. It's quite a bit like sort of distant relationships. But when I go into the pool, I've been in Japan for about 11 years, and going into the pool, these are really friendly people, and I'm making some real friends in there. And they're mostly older, they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, but they are like really fun and playful and smiling and happy. And what is it about the pool or swimming that kind of, I don't know, it opens people up socially or something?
well, a couple of things. One
Yeah.
is that you're dressed differently
Oh yeah.
socially. Second thing is that the water creates or negates a lot of gravity, so you feel yourself lighter. You don't have to take the same things into the water, right? So then all of a sudden you have a different. Oh, I can leave those troubles or that persona back over there, and they do. Sounds like they do.
Yeah, and you meet these
And the
people, and
pers-
you don't even know what their job is. You don't ask. You're just swimming together.
You just swimming together. Yeah, I mean, I swam next to Olympians. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew they were Olympians. They didn't know who I was, but I mean, but I swam next to them, and they're gorgeous to watch in the water. I loved it. I mean, after they get out, I mean, I don't know where they go or what they do.
Yeah.
They don't know me either.
But it kind of breaks down all these barriers. Like, I mean, these people are double my age. We're from different countries. We speak different languages, sort of. We
Different
try to,
cultures,
and we just
different,
naturally gravitate towards each other because we're just like kind of swimming together.
yeah, in the
It's
same lane. And
nice.
yeah, you go, I'll go. What do you want
And
to
you never
do?
talk
Yeah,
about the normal things. You're kind of like kids again. I love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The socialization that we talked about is like it's gone.
Is it the
You
same
know, it's
over
like
there? Is it the same from your experience? There's a bit of
um,
is it more competitive kind of pools you're going in probably?
matters. Some pools, some parts of So I swim pretty aggressively.
Yeah, you don't have time to talk.
There's not a lot of banter. There's not. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
there can be, but some people are more serious about it than others. I like a little bit of banter, but I like to get my workout in.
Yeah,
So
me
I go in
too.
the morning. I'm an early riser, so I'll go in the morning. I'll be in the pool around 6:30, 6:45 in the morning, and then I'll be done by 8. And so I get an hour and 15 minutes. And I see my friends and we talk and catch up
Yeah,
and
yeah,
say,
yeah.
okay, what do you want to do? Yeah, here we go. Let's go.
Okay.
I like that. I like that. To me, that's an enjoyable time.
Okay, I'll let you go in a second. There's one more question I have. I want you to unveil your entire toolbox of now. You gave us one sort of tool, this covering up the eye, this ear thing, putting. What is the ear one? I guess you're plugging up an ear with an earplug or
Yeah,
something.
plugging up an ear. Yeah, yeah. Think
Okay.
about the vestibular. Did you watch the video of the two triathletes? Is
No,
that the
I missed
video
it.
you watched?
I didn't do my homework. No, I didn't
I
watch the
thought you
video.
said
I listened to a podcast. You're
okay, okay,
interviewed. Maybe
okay.
there was a video portion to it. Who knows?
Yeah, no, there was a different. I've been
Okay,
interviewed
okay,
a
yeah.
couple of times, but there's a. I could send you that So there's a couple of one's a pro triathlete, and one is amateur, but she won world championships. So she's a very, very gifted athlete, and she swam in college, and they had a really different experience of themselves. You know, uh, yeah. So you were saying,
Yeah, I want to.
toolbox.
Are there any other
Okay.
kind of? You don't have to unveil the whole, all your magic tricks.
Oh,
But if
I
you got
got
some
so
more,
many.
I love
I
this
got
kind of stuff. Like these are like little experimenting with your perception and kind of changing your perception. And I
yeah.
love that. I love that. That's like what my life is about. So teach me anything you
Well, I
got.
mean, when you're swimming or when you're running
And
or
just
just
in
in the
general,
pool.
anything, because like this is creative stuff that people don't even. It seems almost obvious. Like why didn't someone think of this? But you've thought about it, you've done it. So if you got any, it could be walking, it could be anything in
Yeah.
life.
So I have a young man who's coming to see me who's a really up and coming star violinist. One of the things that I did with him was uh, I had him, of course, do the eye patch, but I also had him lie down on let's see if I can get this, uh, uh, a foam roller like this,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
he would, right? And then he would, we've been working together for a little bit. He would lie down on it and he would do what he called air violin warming up. So, and that, he's a very, very accomplished violinist. But when he does it like that on the roller, he can feel how his back changes against the roller as he's doing his warm ups. Well, he never feels his back before, right? So, and another thing is to have something like this. I mean, if this was do it like this for the audience, if we do this, if you do this, right, so people can see that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then golfers, they lean against this. I can't do it because it's not. I'm
Yeah, so
not
you got this
against the
like foam
wall.
roller like vertically to your back.
Yeah, to like that,
Okay.
right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah, yeah.
as you do this movement, the roller goes opposite, so you can feel how your back moves relative to how your front moves,
Wow,
and
so you can
that
use all these things to like for your own little like if you're a writer, you're a violinist, you're a golfer, whatever, you can.
yeah, 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 absolutely. So the violinist loves that and warms up like that all the time, and made a world of difference to him. I mean, he came in with hardly could play, and now he's playing without pain. So because he was in a lot of pain, and so now he's so But one of the things that I wanted to say
Yeah.
is that uh, Feldenkrais is for everybody. Moshe has a saying, people want to change as long as you don't have to, right? So even if you're do even if you don't want to change, the work works no matter what. Now, you can do whatever you want with it, but it works and it'll help you. I love working. I love working with everybody, but I'm working with a lot of kids now, a lot of children and athletes, but a lot of kids, several kids with cerebral palsy, several kids on the spectrum of autism, and to see the possibilities of how they can change is really fulfilling to me. I also like watching, a guy who's, a place kicker for, in the NFL, go from not being able to make the team to, his dream is to be an NFL kicker, and he's been able to do that. So, or a pitcher, and get, hasn't, they discarded him because he got injured. For me, that's a lot of why I do what I do. So I think it's important. I'm not the one throwing the ball. I'm not the one kicking the ball. I'm not the baby who's learning to crawl. But I do take enjoyment in watching those things.
Yeah, especially you mentioned these people who society has kind of given up on it and just discarded it as these guys, it's impossible, they're done. This is a neurological disorder. This is what it's going to be. There's no more
Right.
possibilities. And you're showing, oh, well, maybe that's not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this young woman, a young girl. So this, an adolescent girl who's on the spectrum uh, of autism came to has been seeing me, and her mom was, I would say, more than ecstatic of how the change was what was going on. So to me, that was, and the girl was too. So that it was really, and to get a hug from that human being is pretty special, pretty special. So
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. So, uh, yeah. So I guess your daughter got sick back in what 88 or 87 or something.
when she didn't get
And
sick, she had neurological. I mean, there was a
yeah,
genetic disorder called spinal
yeah,
muscular atrophy. So that was just something that both,
yeah.
the onset was about 3 years, and then I suppose it to
And that's obviously sucks. But then now look at like what kind of came from that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
yourself and all the people you've helped. So yeah, I mean, we don't want any pain for anybody. But yeah, overall, like it's kind of weird. You can see these sort of clearly negative things in life, and then they turn out to be not necessarily positive, but they bring you in a new direction that helps people. And I guess you could say it's positive. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope I'm adding a little value to the world. That's all you can ask for, right?
I mean, just this conversation alone makes me at least happy, and it opens up new ideas and things for me. Like I'm gonna do the goggle thing. I'm gonna try to think of some other things.
I'll
Um,
I'll come on again if you'll have me.
I'll definitely have you on. I'll definitely do that. I'm happy this went well. A scary thing about podcasting is you're basically meeting someone for the first time and you're recording this and you're not sure if they're gonna like you. You're not sure if you're gonna get along. You might be different kinds of people. Like people like who might not actually talk in real life, end up talking through a podcast, and it's always really nice. Every time I've realized, no, everyone's nice, everyone's great, and I always have a positive experience. And this is another time like that. I was like, this guy's
Oh,
kind of
good.
big, buff guy. He's 68. Does he really know me? I don't know if he's gonna like me. I shouldn't be like
Uh,
self-conscious like that, but I'm always really happy at the end when I feel like, okay, everybody can connect. We just gotta like
yeah, just got
just
to feel
listen,
where
basically.
that intersection point is, right?
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah,
If people want to connect or take one of your lessons or whatever, where do
yeah,
they go?
yeah. So maybe in this you can put it up on the podcast, but it's Feldenkrais Institute of Arizona, and it's R.S. Goldsand at coxcox.net, and my telephone number. I don't know. I
Yeah,
think that would
it's,
be good
it's
enough.
fine. It's
It's okay.
fine.
But yeah, I work all over the world: Australia, Hong Kong, Japan,
Yeah,
a lot. I was working a lot in Japan until recently. Germany. Um, uh, yeah, I'm happy to work via Zoom anywhere.
yeah. And
I can
you've
help.
also got it depends on when people are listening or watching this. But you've got some courses coming up too. I'll link those at the
Yeah,
end. And they'll always be the case. So whenever people are listening to this, hopefully there'll be something coming up anyway.
yeah.
So just go to
I'm,
go to
I'm
the website.
teaching. Yeah, if you want to know more about something like the lesson that you did, it would be um, to do. I'm teaching this a week from Thursday. So today, our time is Monday. We're recording this, so about 10 days from now, um, at 5 o'clock on the Arizona time, or 5:30.
Yeah, well,
And it's called, and you'll have the update, but it's called Learning Live. It's hopefully a big thing. People
yeah.
to teach, so it'll be good. So,
Do you have any recommended resources or books or things in general that you think might help people who are trying to learn about all this kind of stuff? Not your stuff necessarily. I just in
yeah.
general.
Um, I think you could do the YouTube stuff. I think there are a lot of great practitioners. If you email me, I'm happy to you or whoever's listening. Happy to see if there are people
Me
that,
too.
yeah, YouTube. But practitioners that are in your area. But there's nothing like somebody, giving you a hands-on lesson that
Yeah.
really kind of evokes and opens up a world that you weren't used to. I mean, there's a new client coming, emailed me today. It was had 4 brain operations because of cancer years ago, and now Feldenkrais lesson from somebody overseas, and now he's coming to find me, and so that's how it's all. You do it for somebody else.
No, it's great. And you, Feldenkrais is kind of slightly trending now. Not, I wouldn't say trending, but you got started. You've been doing this for well over 30 years, 35 years almost probably. And
Yeah,
so to have someone like you kind of guide people along, even if it's just like directing them to the right person or resource or whatever, I
yeah,
think it's quite valuable. And I really appreciate you coming on
yeah,
and also just
yeah.
being this sort of you know being there for us. Yeah.
Right. You're a great host, and I appreciate you having me. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I.
I definitely have. I gotta go to Arizona. No, we got internet now. We can do things online, and I'll
There
I'll
you
see you.
go.
I'll see you in your course as long as it's not like 3 a.m. Tokyo time or something.
Oh
I'll
no,
be
you know
there.
what? You don't have to be. You can do it when after it's recorded. It'll be available. Just sign up
Okay.
for it. I don't.
Okay.
They just
Okay.
asked me to,
I
what
see.
time do I want to do it, and I said, well, this is a good time for me. And they said, okay, that'll work. So
Which is
yeah,
what
go.
that's another great thing about Feldenkrais is you don't have to do it live. It's something different
Right.
when it's live. But like you sent me a recording last night, and it was like 95% the same experience as if you had. Well, it's a little bit better almost if you're right there. It's like this human connection, but still, it's basically the same. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty close. It was pretty close. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, please, everybody sign up. You too. I hope to see you there.
Yeah. I want to go. Okay.
Yeah.
So see you soon.